welcome to New York Champagne Week. My name is Blaine Ashley, and I'm the founder of this bubbly filled week. And this is event number 4 in our first ever transition to the virtual event space. It's been a blast so far. Every event's been so different and fun and unique. And I thank you all for your support in attending this year's very different looking Champagne Week. Tonight, I am so excited for this event. I think we all are. It's like the biggest ladies' night in with Laurent Perrier. And we have 2 of the biggest boss babes in the champagne business leading this event. We have Michelle DeFeo, who is the president of Laurent Perrier, here with us tonight. And we also have Julia Coney, who's moderating tonight's event. And Julia is a DC-based wine journalist who is also a moderator, educator, influencer, and a recent recipient of Wine Star Award with Wine Enthusiasts, Social Visionary of the Year. So congratulations to Julia. And in addition to that, Julia launched Black Wine Professionals, which half of this event's proceeds will benefit. So very fortunate to have both of you incredibly busy, dynamic ladies on here with us tonight, and thank you so much for supporting. I also just want to point out today is Women Crush Wednesday, and it's also 11/11. So if you're into like lucky numbers and lucky days, it's a lucky day. So we're gonna have a blast tonight, and again, feel free to pipe in any questions you have into the chat, comments, and I'll then unmute you accordingly. Just keep things in line and clean for the recording. We want to make sure everyone is following protocol. So let's get going, Julia.
Okay, so I'm ready. You guys, if you don't know me, I am Julia Coney. And one thing I always say, bubbles bring the party. So I am a staunch advocate for bubbles. I definitely believe that they make the world go around and everyone's happy. And the reason why I love champagne is because it's the method that the majority of the world bases their sparkling wine on. Yes, there's the Prosecco method with, stainless steel, but it's a tank method, doesn't go through second fermentation. But everybody loves like champagne. When you hear that bottle pop, you just really get happy. Like if you're having a bad day, pop a bottle of bubbly, and I guarantee you, you're gonna feel real better. I also love the fact that Laurent Perrier has half bottle sizes. I'm not doing that tonight, but if you have a half bottle, it's great because you don't have to really force it, to drink the bottle, which is perfectly fine if you want to. And one of the things that I discovered when I went to Champagne in 2016 was a rabbit hole, right? It was different than being in a restaurant. It was seeing the vines. And for me, it just put everything in perspective. And it was also fun to watch champagne become such an easy, drinkable, everyday beverage. They didn't take it as seriously as we took it here. I mean, they had so much fun with it. And so I was just like, I need to keep doing this and keep drinking champagne so it can become I want it to be as fun as they have it in Champagne. But so that's what made me really, really get excited about really understanding champagne method, how it works, the different houses, and also the fact that when I really started researching women, and we have Cynthia here from Delectables, who really highlights women champagne producers. So shout out to Cynthia. It just makes you go down this rabbit hole to know there are so many women who the reason we drink champagne is because of them. And we want to just, salute them because they're one of the reasons, like we're all here tonight gathered. I like to say in this name, if you go to church, you know what that means when we say we gather here in this name, and this name is Champagne Laurent Perrier. And so I'm here with Michelle. And one of the things, if you guys, follow me on social media, I started Black Wine Professionals this year. And it's to really highlight Black wine people in the business of wine. And when I met Blaine in 2016, she is literally the FIZZ is female. She literally is the one who created this organization to highlight women who believe in bubbles. And so I know we have a majority of women on this call. And one of the things Blaine and I bonded over was champagne and fried chicken. And then we bonded over a bunch of bottles till about 3 a.m. So it was so much fun, but I love her drive. I love her entrepreneurship in really highlighting and promoting women of color, just all aspects. And she has been, I will say, like ride or die since I met her in 2016 for DC Champagne Week. So I want to also say thank you, Blaine, because we're here because you had this idea 7 years ago.
Thank you.
To bring bubbly to a place where it wasn't, you know, it was just fun and it was engaging and it was really just, I met Rita through you, you know, and through you, I've learned all about like Michelle and Jessica with Laurent Perrier and so many women, like we just really bonded over this. So your work is outstanding and I want to thank you for that as well.
I appreciate that. I want to say something really quickly. I didn't plan to say this, but you know how you have the Facebook memories? I just got a message today that 4 years ago today, we had a ladies' lunch during New York Champagne Week. And it was after the last election, and there was a chalkboard in the room, and all the ladies put like the future is female, and that's when the FIZZ is female, my other platform, was born. So this is a very apropos day to have this event because 4 years later, we have a lot to celebrate.
Yes, we have a lot to celebrate. And also one of the things that when I launched Black Wine Professionals in June, and it seems like it's been forever, but it only really happened in June. I mean, you know, really like June 29th, I was looking today, it's not even 6 months old, but the people that bonded with me, the people that are the advisors, we just wanted to create something. But Jessica and Michelle reached out and they said, we want to start creating the next Champagne professional that's Black. And they created 5 scholarships from Champagne Laurent Perrier for 5 Black wine professionals to take the course. Now, here's the thing. It wasn't like, let's just take a course. They decided to create master classes, that we're going to have these master classes, providing all of the entire Laurent Perrier portfolio to them to taste and really understand the nuances of champagne. And they are 100% behind them. We had a couple of weeks ago, our first meet and greet. And one of the things like, Larissa is our director of education on here. And not only did they give give 5 scholarships to other people, they gave one to our director of education as well. So it is one of those things like, and the goal is when the world opens up that we will be in Tour-sur-Marne at Champagne Laurent Perrier, visiting the house, all of us together. So I just want to say that, like when you say, put your money where your mouth is, or people who say like, they really are, is past allies. I don't even know what to call that because they stood up and were the first to reach out to me regarding scholarships, donations, and anything like, what can we do? And Jessica and I got on the phone, we talked to Michelle, we worked it through. And like, for now, I can't wait to see these amazing people learn the method and the process and really why we all need to know the history of it if we love it so much. So yeah, I will think, you know, Michelle, and so take it, you know, for that, we need to start drinking. I know we're all drinking, but now it's, you know, we can like say, hey,
cheers to cheers to 4 years of FIZZ is female and looking at the future is female. The next giant step of the future being female begins on January 20th. I cannot wait for that personally. And cheers to 6 months of Black wine professionals. And Blaine, I don't even want to think back to 4 years ago today, so I will not. I am just really happy about where we are 4 years since then. So cheers to FIZZ is female, cheers to Black wine professionals, and cheers to the future actually looking bright for a change, if I may say. So cheers to that. And of course, our future looks bright because we're drinking champagne.
On a Women's Crush Wednesday, like in the middle of the week, I think when you can say like, technically like it's hump day, but it's still, you know, it's bubbles, right? And that's why we're all here. And I know you guys, like one of the things that when I discovered the Laurent portfolio, really understood a deep dive masterclass that Jessica did in DC, the history just made me really, because, you know, it's once again, it's a woman, but also that the families, I was shocked to find such an amazing champagne, as Michelle would talk about it, that is all tank made.
Yes.
It's shocking.
Well, indeed, and I mean, I guess I should maybe, you know, tell you if this is a good time, I can tell you guys all about the history of Laurent Perrier, which,
let's go with the history. Everybody, first of all, let's do a group toast. Who's doing the photo? Who's doing the photo captions? Sure. Did somebody get pages 2 and 3 because we're toasting? So if somebody holds
we all know I'm a one-woman show, Julia. Come on.
I know what we just did to do. Somebody do page 2. Yeah, I see page 1, so I'm only seeing like, so if somebody could get like the other pages. So once again, let's toast to New York Champagne Week, to new beginnings for all of us, and not only new beginnings for all of us, but new beginnings for our country. And so we got to toast to that. So cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Oh, I like that. Look at my face through the glass.
Oh, it looks amazing, actually. I want to do that. Wait, it's not going to work for me.
That's gonna look great in the recording.
Your glass is perfect for that.
Cheers, Rita.
So I'm really, it's very fortuitous, and I'm on behalf of Laurent Perrier and our house, we are excited about the next step in our country's timeline portends for females, because we have a very soft spot in our hearts for females in positions of leadership, because Laurent Perrier's history and its success is inextricably linked with many wonderful women since our founding in 1812. So we were actually founded by a cooper, guy who used to make barrels, and he had a winemaker, a chef de cave, and the chef de cave actually died in an accident in the cellars. A little bit of hubris. He had built a new elevator to bring bottles up from the cellar up to the ground floor. We have 11 miles of cellars underneath Laurent Perrier, and he had developed this ingenious elevator to lift up the bottles to the ground level. But as he was showing it off, it failed and it crushed him. Alas, hubris, a bad thing. But when he died, our cellar master left he was airless, and he left the house when the cooper died, he left it to the cellar master. When the cellar master died in this accident in our cellars, he left it to his wife. And of course, he assumed that his wife would simply, kind of let other people run the house of Laurent Perrier, and would, and she wouldn't really be involved, but she would still have money, but she took the reins. So that happened in the latter half of the 19th century. When she passed away, she actually left it to her daughter, who took over just before the Great Depression, not a great time. But then the daughter decided to sell it to yet another woman named Marie-Louise Lanson de Nonancourt in 1939. So at that point, so now we're looking at almost 100 years already of women being responsible for Champagne Laurent Perrier. And then there was a man who, the son of the woman who bought it in 1939, took over. And when he passed away, he left it to his two daughters, Alexandra and Stephanie de Nonancourt, also known as my bosses. And they have been running the house now for over a decade since their father passed away. And the next generation of the family, Alexandra's daughter, Lucie de Nonancourt, actually joined us last year. So we are continuing this, we have this continuity of female leadership at Laurent Perrier. And I am the president of Laurent Perrier US, the US subsidiary of the house. And I see some of the wonderful women on my team are here. There's one. We got Kathleen, we got Jessica. Or if there's anyone on page 2, Naomi, I think, is here.
Naomi.
Hey, Naomi. We had, at one point, we were 100% female at Laurent Perrier US. And, look, if there's one thing that I hope everyone's learned something about over the course of the last 6 months, it's the idea of implicit bias. But I would just love to just say that it was definitely, there was no bias there, that it made it all women. But at one point I actually said, all right, I better really try to maybe shake it up. So now on our sales team, we have one man. So I've done it. I've shaken it up. We got one man on our sales team. But we are, even here in the US, we have an amazing coterie of absolutely fantastic women who are telling the story of Laurent Perrier. I mean, we are obviously so proud to be working for this house, which is very historic, which has this history of female leadership, but also a house that makes absolutely wonderful champagnes. And Julia, I just have to echo what you said before. The idea of 2020 has been rough. I think we can probably mostly agree with that, right? And I have worked in the wine and spirits business for over 25 years. And the majority of that, the vast majority of that, has been working with champagne. And you might be able to see here behind me, I have my own personal warehouse of champagne, which is mostly now recyclables that I just really need to get around to taking out. But I'm very fortunate that I get to have champagne a lot. And I swear to you, every time I pour myself a glass, I have an emotional experience. Even after all these years and all these bottles, there's nothing like champagne to just take you out of your moment and say, you know what? Life is a celebration. Things are okay. Let me put things in perspective. And what an amazing thing is that, right? It's not just a wine, it's an emotional experience every time you have a glass of champagne.
Well,
And
I like to say that with Jessica, champagne is a romance language. So I said this on our chat. Champagne has history, war, money, economics, culture, art. It is all that wrapped into one when you think about it. And so for me, I always say, if you want romance in a glass, pop some champagne. That is the way. And also, it's the most food friendly wine.
oh yeah.
It is the most food friendly wine because ranges of champagne run the gamut. Like you all make, we're not tasting tonight, but Laurent Perrier make a demi-sec. And it's a sweet champagne. But here's the thing, if you like spicy food, really, really, I mean, melt your face off like I do, like Szechuan Chinese, is delicious. But it also goes with chili cheese Fritos. So you can literally have chili cheese Fritos and you can have like this Szechuan that burn your face off. You can, you know, and that's how I have it. I don't look at like champagne as I'm waiting, you know, and my girls on here, which is Shakira, Kelly, and Larissa, we just pop bottles and like go on FaceTime. Like that's what we do. It's like to catch up. And so we just, that's what we do. We're like, hey, we need a group chat. Everybody's like, well, you know, and so for us, champagne is like, it's like everybody's into weighted blankets, right? So champagne is your weighted blanket in a glass.
Oh, I love that. So Julia, could you, you know, as we're enjoying, I know some of you got the wine packages. So some of you may have the first bottle, the half bottle, which I love half bottles because if I want more, there's always, you know, you have a second half bottle recommendation. But the Laurent Perrier La Cuvée Brut Non-Vintage. So Julia, could you lead us through the wines that we're tasting tonight?
So we're tasting the, like Michelle said, the La Cuvée Brut Non-Vintage. And we're also tasting my favorite this is a funny story. 2 years ago, I was at the International Pinot Noir celebration and Naomi, who is on this call, poured me unlimited amounts of Laurent Perrier Pinot Rosé. Every time she saw me, she was like, sis, where's your glass? Here you go. Thank you, Naomi. How are you? Thank you, Naomi. Thank you. That's when I actually fell in love. But we're tasting the Brut. And so for me, when I taste this wine, because I look at this as one of those wines to start the night while I'm cooking, that can actually take me through the meal, or I can just like have it with snacks, Lay's potato chips. Anybody know, like I love it with a potato chip. Shakira and I love caviar. Shakira sent me the link yesterday. I ordered me some caviar early for my birthday. It's gonna be here tomorrow. I'm just excited for that. Can't wait. I was like hoping it came today, but it didn't. But for me, when I think of this Brut, I just think of it as an everyday. Think about it as your happy hour wine, right? This is your happy hour wine. If you have children, and I'm praying for all y'all with kids, because I know you guys are the teachers, you're the cafeteria lady, you're the homeroom executive, you're the gym teacher, you're just doing all of it. Like, I just got to give you a hands off to that. So this is the one where you just say, I want a glass of something. This is the one you have, right? You just go and pour it. And I guarantee you it's going to make everything taste better that you pour. But what I like about it is it has enough of, you might hear people talk about RS in champagne, residual sugar. It has enough sugar. It's not sweet and it's not too dry. So sometimes a lot of people don't like the dryness because of the acid. But for me, I'm an acid chaser, as I like to say. And this has enough acid and residual sugar that I can start and end the entire night just drinking this one.
Yeah, it's funny, Julia, as you're talking, I was just kind of thinking, you said the word art before, and I was kind of thinking, and I've never really thought about it before, like, but if this champagne, if Laurent Perrier La Cuvée Brut Non-Vintage was an artist, you know, was paintings, what would it be? And I think I would go with Monet.
Oh my God, the lilies, right? In the Monet Museum in Paris, that's so far out when you get off the metro, you get lost and turn around, and then everybody say, oh, you're the American looking for the Monet Museum. Yeah, that one. That's what this is.
And it runs out,
right?
My husband's actually a painter, so I'm kind of like, so it's like, so there's like even like really, 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 you know, people who are super into it, who know art, know, you know, true fine art and painting, respect the masterfulness of Monet, right? And yet it's also what's hanging above your grandmother's cushioned toilet seat in a calendar. You know, so it kind of like goes that whole gamut, right? Like, so it's super easily approachable. It's enjoyable for everybody. But if you're a super art geek, you know, like you still understand, you know, or bring it back to champagne, even if you're a wine geek, people are still able to recognize the quality that's in the glass. So it's just totally, something that just has a broad range of appeal no matter where you are. You don't have to pretend to be a wine geek. And look, I gotta tell you, I'm officially I'm like a certified wine geek. There's a lot of wine geek wines I don't actually like to drink. I'm like, oh, okay, that's interesting. I understand it, but I don't actually want to drink it and put it in my mouth. But the La Cuvée just kind of goes that whole gamut from, you don't have to understand it, but if you super geek out on wine, you're going to appreciate it. So it's nice to have that spectrum there, which is
not only the spectrum, but I'm from the South, right? And so for me, when I think of the foods I like to eat, I come from an area of fried foods. Like I think shrimp po' boys, fried green tomatoes, etouffee. I make Thanksgiving come up, I make seafood dressing, which is crawfish, crab, and shrimp. Put it all in, and I can serve this all day. This is the wine for people who, and also one of the things I always tell people, do not think of champagne outside of wine. It is a wine. At the end of the day, champagne is wine. And I think I'm media, right? I'm a journalist. We've separated for so long that we also took the fun out of it, right? And then we made it something else besides wine. So when people think of it, they're like, oh, but champagne's not wine. Oh, it starts as a still wine. Second fermentation happens that we love, and that's why we have this cork, and you turn it 6 times to the left, and you want to hear this hiss of when you open it, right? But for me, at the end of the day, it's still a wine. It's just a wine with bubbles. It's a wine that I can actually drink a lot of, like I like to say, and always I don't feel like crap the next day. That's one of the beauties of it.
The best.
Somebody's saying in the chat, there's a few people who have already enjoyed their full half bottles, and good for you. Cheers to you guys. But it's also a wine that's not very alcoholic, right? We're just about at 12%. And I think, especially as Americans, and if we're drinking California wine, I'm still kind of amazed with how often I pick up a bottle. And even in France now with some global warming, I mean, you get a Beaujolais and it's 13.9.
Yeah.
So, and it doesn't sound like a lot, the difference between 12% and 14%. But think about that on a percentage basis of how much more alcohol is in something, 12 versus 14. It's pretty substantial. So yeah, you can go a little more, volumetric with champagne and not hit yourself in the morning for it.
Exactly. And also, if we have I want to say shout out to Vincent. I love you. Thank you for being on this ladies' night chat. You're my brother, man. I love it. But also for the ladies on the chat, champagne has less calories than most wine. So if you're worried about that, just letting you know, it has less calories per glass than our standard still wine. So a little thing that I keep in mind when you're on your Peloton, or you like me, I do Tracy Anderson, or you're doing your Orange Theory, whichever one floats your boat, just kind of know that. But also the reason why I like the La Cuvée, and I'm going to tell people, you need a house champagne. I know a lot of times people think I have to go to the store. I have to go get a champagne because something. Always have champagne in your house. I always say have 6 bottles. This La Cuvée is such a great price point that you literally buy it by the case. It is cheaper when you buy wines by the case. And always know you can tag me because I do it on Mondays called #Champagne Mondays. I go through a bottle of champagne on Mondays. So I want you guys to think about making this like you're just house champagne. So if somebody comes over, I don't know, your friend got a puppy, you read a new book this month that made you happy, you didn't watch MSNBC all day, this should be
please don't make that a metric, because then I can never have champagne
No, I know. I have a lot of friends on here who are news junkies, and they know I watch the news at 7 a.m. and then I'm done. That's it.
I would like to say something. So to your point on, you got a new puppy, you're cleaning house, whatever you're doing, the impetus for New York Champagne Week being created was to put champagne in your hand all day, every day, any day of the week. It doesn't need to be for a celebration. You should have that house champagne because it goes well with every single type of food out there. Seriously, it's the most food friendly wine out there.
And so here's the thing, I always, before we go into the rosé, one of the things I know, some people in the chat, you might see people's faces and you might notice that we're not drinking the champagne out of a flute. So I want to interject this before we move to the next wine. When you drink the champagne out of the flute, you get the bubbles of the visual. You do not always get the aromas and the textures and the complexity as in this is a universal Mark Thomas glass. There's the Zalto Universal glass. There's the Gable glass, which is a sponsor for New York Champagne Week. And you're going to find something different. So if you want to do a taste comparison, I will tell you to go get a white wine glass at your house right now before we move to the rosé.
Good call.
Yeah, I always try to do this like so you can understand the different smells and aromas. Now for me, because the next rosé is 100% Pinot Noir dominant, I am changing glass because I drink this rosé out of a Pinot Noir glass.
Oh.
I drink it out of a bigger glass. That's just, and that is a Pinot Noir sommelier's glass from Riedel. So I want you to try that. And when you do, you'll notice just the little nuances you may not have picked up before to really try to say, oh, did I really understand that? And here's the thing, you may not like it, but a lot of professionals, like wine professionals, we drink it out of a bigger glass. So that's why if you're on here and you're seeing us with a bigger glass or a tulip shaped glass, they make those for champagne. In champagne, there are no flutes. The only time people have a coupe is really for a party, but to really taste champagne, everyone has a tulip glass. Yeah, somebody says champagne and grilled tomahawk with truffles. Ooh, Tanya. Woo, woo, woo.
Oh, don't do that to us when we can't eat. Ooh, that sounds really good.
Yes.
Especially with the rosé, with the rosé and filet. It's a big
rosé and filet, or you like, I love a good hamburger. So I love rosé and hamburgers. And I have a special way. I really like mine with medium rare to medium. And I like it with pepper jack cheese, caramelized onions, lettuce, tomato, Dijon mustard, and rosé on a brioche bun burger. That's like my order. That's what I want. I've bought hamburgers that were great and then took everything off and put it on a brioche bun because I'm like, why don't you serve this on a brioche bun? I'm not a potato bun fan, but I will have it. But that is the way I have my rosé. Just a little quirk for anybody who's listening.
I think like everybody's suddenly on Grubhub on their phone.
Shakira's trying not to order fried chicken, and I'm like, baby girl, order some fried chicken.
I know, I was about to say that. Go ahead and do it.
My husband is frying fish, so he's in there with a cast iron. So, and I'm like, this is the rosette. When we're done, it's gonna be like on because I haven't eaten, all day. So it's great.
And and what you're saying as well, Julia, with with having a larger flute, and with champagne being a wine, go ahead and swirl it. Yeah, it's going to make the bubbles dissipate faster, but if you really want to get the esters and the aromatics that are coming out of that glass, don't be afraid to swirl the champagne glass. But, but don't fill it up very much, right? If you're going to be swirling it, but if you really want to sniff it and get those full aromas, go ahead and swirl it. Put your nose in that glass. And, we didn't talk about descriptors, but I'm getting there's like honeysuckle. It's like my favorite. I'm
thinking chamomile flowers. That is like every time I taste this wine, I'm thinking chamomile flowers, honeysuckle, and right. Has anybody ever had fresh honey like right off the honeycomb? Like if you smell it from the honeycomb, it's different if you put it on a spoon. This to me is honeycomb. I'm getting like this honeycomb of this, but also I'm getting this really, really, really Rainier cherry. You know how Rainier cherries has a slight. Not Bing, but Rainier cherry, specifically Rainier cherry.
Oh my gosh, Julia, all of these years that I've been drinking Laurent Perrier champagne and I've never thought Rainier cherry. And now that you just said it, I'm like, oh my God, Rainier cherry.
Can I tell you a recipe? If you in the summertime, if you find Rainier cherries, this is my go-to grilled cheese sandwich.
Oh, fantastic. Love
you
that.
Want to get like the really nice, like sourdough bread. You want to macerate Rainier cherries in a little bit of sugar over the stove to make a compote. You want to add the champagne to the compote, let it simmer down, spread it on the toast, layer triple cream brie like St. Andre's or Delice de Bourgogne, put the bread back on it, grill it like a panini. And I'm telling you, with this wine,
I think we all might need a little follow-up from Julia with that recipe, all written down. That sounds.
I'll write it down. It's the easiest recipe. It's one of those things because I don't like jams from the store. I think they're too sweet. They have too much sugar for me, so I like to control it. And I don't actually add sugar. I learned a few years ago to splash a little champagne into it that gives it the sugar, so I don't have to add sugar.
Yeah, basically the entire chat is just like, Julia, come over. Julia, come make this. Is that on Grubhub? Love that, Shakira. Yeah, I know. We're all just like, but and I guess that just totally proves the point, right? That champagne is a food wine. You can just see yourself. You can just envision enjoying this so much and you know, elevating even your food experience with this champagne. That's just
And here's the funny thing, we moved to the next champagne. I have a lot of my Atlanta friends on here, so shout out to my ATL girls. The rosé, all you need is one of those Publix Subway sandwiches y'all got. The Publix makes the best sandwiches. They got these sandwiches at Publix that
the grocery chain Publix.
yes, the deli sandwiches.
Yeah.
Oh my God, the deli sandwiches at Publix are insane. They go with the rosé, especially if you get like the salamis on them and everything in the Black Forest ham. Yeah. So my ATL ladies, and if you don't eat meat, I'm sorry on that one, but you can find something. Yeah. Blaine, you're on mute. If you're talking, Blaine, you're on mute.
I said, Julia, you gotta stop. I'm getting really hungry here. I mean, I'm like,
Well, you know what that means, that you're getting hungry, you know, because you're like, I need all this, you know, champagne just is, think about it, champagne is quenching your palate, right? It's giving you enough acid.
totally. I have so many ideas floating through my head right now for what I'm gonna order after.
I do, baby girl. That's what I do.
Can I call out Cynthia for a second here? And you know, and Cynthia, you know, my French is, I am not a native French speaker, but the word aperitif, like champagne is the quintessential aperitif.
An apéro. Apéro.
Does that have anything to do with like the opening of the appetite kind of thing? Like or Rita, yes, and Rita as well. Like, but what does the word aperitif mean? Like, because when we're having this champagne, it's making us hungry, but that's kind of the function of an aperitif, right? The before dinner drink is to kind of spark your appetite, right?
Well, exactly. You've got the apéritif when you start the meal or before you start the meal, and the digestif at the end to help you digest all that you just ate. And so in France, champagne is the most common apéritif, because if any of you do a test and mouthwash with your champagne, one of the first reactions you're going to get is your mouth is watering, and that preps your mouth. It makes you want to have another sip or a bite of food. So it wets your mouth, it gets the juices going. Whereas I'm sure some of you have done it with red wine, you get the sort of dry, sharky sensation with the tannins up there. And with red wine, you want to reach for a glass of water before you have a bite of food. So apéritif really gets the juices going with the champagne and primes your mouth for eating.
I would like to quickly, thank you for that, Cynthia. I would like to point out that Cynthia is part of Champagne Week. She's on our first ever bubbly board, and she's been tuning in late night from Paris for these events. But Cynthia is also the founder of a female-focused wine club called Delectables, which is a champagne club for women. And it's dedicated to teaching about champagne houses that are fully represented by women, female-made champagne, all of that jazz. If you want to say a few words, Cynthia, and I'm going to pipe it into the chat where people can follow you.
Sure. So I'm a champagne educator and guide. I'm Canadian. I've been in Paris for about 29 years, so longer in Paris than in Canada. But what makes me a little bit different is that I only use champagnes made by women. And when I take people to Champagne, to either small growers or big houses, women have to play an important role there. And if you end up following me on Instagram, it's not me in a bikini holding a bottle of champagne. Trust me, you do not want to see that. What I try to do is tell the stories about the women behind the bottles, because I also manage a champagne club for women. And what a lot of women have told me is that if they had two similar champagnes, similar prices, similar qualities, one made by a woman, one made by a man, that they'd be more than happy to support women and buy that champagne that's made by the woman and to support them. Except most of the time they don't know the stories behind the bottles. And so if you follow me on Instagram, sometimes you might get stories about me, what I'm up to in Paris or in Champagne. But most of the time I'm trying to tell the stories about the women behind the bottles. So voilà, that's what I do.
So hopefully next year's ladies' night is in Champagne with Cynthia at the Royal Champagne Hotel, and we're all gonna get spa treatments and drink champagne. It's gonna be amazing. Let's manifest that.
Yes.
The word
yeah.
manifest is a very big word on 11/11. So let's do that.
So yes, and so I haven't met Cynthia, but God willing, I'm gonna say this is a very Southern term. God willing, and the creek don't rise. I'll see you in April, baby, in Champagne. So looking forward to that in April, and then back again in October. I'll be in Champagne for 3 weeks in October. So
I will
everything
drink.
opens up, so I'm excited. So if
I will drink champagne with all of you whenever you come to Paris. Champagne unites.
Yes. And I
so
was going to call it Nadine too, who just put it very simply. She just said, I can't wait to get back to Champagne. And
exactly, Nadine, exactly. Thank you. And that's my friend. I've been knowing Nadine quite some time. She's an amazing travel writer, and her website is A Sophisticated Life, right? Did I get it right, Nadine? Okay, A Sophisticated Life. I've been knowing Nadine probably 2011 or 2012, so quite a while. So yeah, so amazing. So we're moving into bottle number 2. I will say this Laurent Perrier Cuvée Rosé is like angel's tears to God's ears. I remember, and I have to tell you the story when I met Naomi Smith, and this was IPNC, because the International Pinot Noir celebration is a celebration of Pinot Noir. And so Laurent Perrier, this is 100% Pinot Noir. And it is one of those things that made me really start getting an understanding of Pinot Noir champagne. Bless you, Michelle. And we had it for brunch, we had it for lunch, we had it for dinner, and it was so versatile with all the foods. And one of the things I really also love about champagne is you can be a carnivore, you can be a vegetarian, you can be vegan. Really, a lot of these wines actually work with that a lot of times, a lot of other wines that people are watching certain dietary restrictions, they don't adhere to, and they're just kind of concerned about other wines. I understand, but this rosé is, if you notice the color of it, it is really deep. It is really intensified. It is macerated that literally to increase the color. So one thing about Pinot Noir, a lot of times Pinot Noir can make a white wine, but it can also make a red wine, and it can make this rosé. So it's all about skin contact for a Pinot Noir. That's what happens with this amazing. But also Pinot Noir is one of those grapes that Champagne is a cool climate, which means it's cold. It's subject to rot and frost and mildew because it's rainy sometimes. It's just, we paint it as very beautiful, and it is, but sometimes it can be gross to actually kind of go there in the wrong season. But Pinot Noir is not an easy grape to tend to, especially in Champagne, because of the climate, and climate change is real and it's constantly changing. So for them to produce every year, year after year, is amazing. Now, I will say this about this cuvee. I want you guys to this year get this rosé and lay it down. Lay it on its side, not on top of your kitchen refrigerator, not into a cabinet. If you don't have a cooler, the coldest, darkest room of your house, let this have some age. When we think of aging wine, we forget that Champagne, once again, is still a wine. It can be aged. This wine, if you buy it this year, lay it down for next year this time, and then buy a new bottle of Laurent Perrier Cuvée Rosé, and then do a comparison. You will benefit from, Champagne really benefits from aging in a way. And I think sometimes when we think of aging wine, people are like, oh, I need to wait 10 years. I need to wait, 7 years. I don't mean that. I literally mean just a year, just one of those things. And also too, we have lived in 2020 and we're here to tell the tale, talking Champagne. Let's not age our wines, people. Let's drink them. let's do this, and let's do it in celebration. So it is really interesting because I remember I looked at my notes from when I had this in 2018. I bought a bottle, but I opened that bottle, but I always keep all my notes, and I compared it now. And what's interesting is this, to me, when people say red fruits, because when you get these descriptors for wine, it's always like red fruit, but you know how many fruits are red? Right? But that's also different from different cultures, right? Because a red fruit to us in America is very different than another culture's red fruit, right? It's going to taste completely different. A plum to us in America tastes completely different than another red fruit from the Caribbean. So for me, this is strawberries picked in the summertime that you were like going through, where your hand is turning like red because they're so fresh and this is what I love about Pinot Noir, the freshness and the texture it gives. This basically, if you want to tell yourself you're drinking a light red wine.
Absolutely.
That's what you're drinking. You're drinking a light red wine with bubbles.
Absolutely. And, you know, of course, geographically, the next closest wine growing region to Champagne is Burgundy. So, and of course, the red wine of Burgundy is made from Pinot Noir. So, you know, there are times when I think, you know, if you were, not that I suggest this, but if you were to leave the last bit of your bottle of Laurent Perrier Rosé off to the side and it got flat and it got warm and you tasted it completely blind, like literally in one of those black glasses, and you swirl it and you sniff it, you're going to pick up on the true variety character, the varietal character of Pinot Noir in that glass. It'll kind of taste like a Volnay in a really light year kind of thing, but you really get that Pinot Noir characteristic that's coming through. And Kelly mentioned something about, Kelly picked up, and it was very, I think a great comment that it's like a Rosé de Sagné. So it's not actually a Rosé de Sagné. Sagné is a rosé that's made from the juice that's bled off. And it's a very small differentiation. We don't have to go into all of the super technical details of it, but Laurent Perrier Rosé is kind of like a Rosé de Sagné, but it takes it a step further. We're what we call a rosé of maceration. So basically all we do is we go out, we harvest our Pinot Noir grapes. They're 100% Grand Cru, meaning the best rated vineyards in Champagne. We have 10 to 11 crus that we choose from for our Pinot Noir grapes. All we do is we take those bunches, we bring them onto a sorting table, we hand sort the clusters, we then put them in a destemmer, and then we have just the grapes, no stems, but just the grapes themselves go into what is called the maceration vat. And for 2 to 3 days, we just let the grapes, the weight of the grapes themselves, crush themselves. And every 8 hours, we pump over, the juice. And that's all we do for 48 to 72 hours. It's nothing but grapes in a stainless steel tank and their own weight. That's all it is for 2 to 3 days. And we keep it really cold so that fermentation doesn't start happening, which is the technical difference between maceration and Sagné. So we keep it super cold, and then we move that to a fermentation vat. And what we end up with then is this super fresh, really clean, only, the Pinot Noir berries themselves. We get this pink still wine as our base wine, and then that becomes Laurent Perrier Rosé. And we actually pioneered this technique, and I'm probably saying too much about it in public because it's kind of like the recipe for new Coke, right? Because we don't really want people following us. It's like, we do it this way, but, Naomi and Jessica are some of the only people who have actually been into the Pinot Noir maceration room, which I worked at LP for about 10 years before I was able to finagle myself into that part of the winery and stick my head into the maceration vat and be like, whoa, hey, this is so cool. It took a long time. But it's a very unique process that we have, and that's what results in that color. And Julia, it looks so awesome against your yellow shirt. I'm loving that.
This is my Black Wine Professionals Cheers shirt in like.
Yes, can you show us that? Because we can't read the whole thing.
Okay.
What does it say?
It says, cheers, chin chin, santé, pro, salud, bye. These are available on the Black Wine Professionals site. It is $35 for a t-shirt. Please go buy them because the money that goes back to the master classes that we will be leading all through 2021 for Black Wine Professionals. So
navigating away.
Michelle, how often are you doing pump overs? Is it multiple
Michelle,
pump?
how often are you doing the pump overs? Shakira is asking.
We do the pump over every 8 hours. Normally every 8 hours. It's going to change with every harvest because it depends on how warm the harvest was, what the phenolics are in the skins, and and some of those things. And it's kind of dangerous too because you're not legally allowed to make a red champagne, right? We're not doing sparkling Shiraz. We're not doing sparkling Pinot Noir in Champagne. And in the Cahier de Charge, which we'll talk about when we're in the class, it's not technically legal to make a red sparkling champagne. So we have to be careful because we don't want to extract. We want the color, we want the aroma, but well, no, I'm sorry. Let me strike that from the record. We want the aroma, but we don't necessarily want the color. So if you have a year that's really warm, you're going to have more in the skin of the grape that's going to make it highly concentrated in terms of color, but we can't have it be red because that's not allowed in Champagne. So,
yeah, the beautiful salmon pink is gorgeous.
Yeah, but there are some years, if it's a cooler year, we may have the perfect color, but we don't have enough flavor or aroma. So we got to keep going. But then there's other years where we may have a lot of color, but or too much color. Anyway, it's this delicate balance. It's making champagne is
Not easy.
not easy. I had
easy.
a time in my life where I thought I wanted to be a winemaker, and then I learned about what that was like, and I was like, no, I'm just going to do everything else.
Michelle, we have a question for you. Is global warming affecting production of champagne at all? Has anything changed?
Yes, it's affecting it severely. It's affecting everything from, I mean, this is like its own, like 2-hour call, but if we were to Champagne used to be the northernmost growing climate for Vitis vinifera grapes on the planet.
Okay, so let me just say, if Vitis vinifera is the species of grapes used to make wine, because remember, like I just want to break that down for people who are listening that are not in the wine business. Vitis vinifera is and so that is the species. So that's why you can't take the grapes from the store and make wine.
Exactly.
You can do that, I guess, if that's what you want to do, but it's not actually wine.
Not going to taste very good.
Not going to taste very good.
Yeah. But now, of course, many of you have probably heard, if not all of you, that there are very good sparkling wines being made in England, let's say. England is very much to the north of Champagne of France. But as climate change has been happening, we are very clearly seeing, without any, this is not a judgment call. This is just objective data for temperatures in the vineyards of Champagne. It gets warmer almost every year, right? So now we are in a place where we actually had the earliest harvest ever in the history of Champagne, which has been making wine since the 17th century, as far as we know of, and probably even before that. But there were Vitis vinifera grapes in Champagne as early as the 17th century. The earliest harvest ever recorded was this very year, August 18th. So as things are becoming riper more quickly, it changes a lot in terms of like the phenolic ripeness of the grapes, the physiological ripeness of the grapes. Because getting a grape ripe means that it has to have a certain level of sugar, but also a certain level of acid. And it's this tremendous balance that you have to hit. So as this has been happening in Champagne, we're dealing with questions like, and it sounds silly, right? But who's going to harvest our grapes? Do we have the right crew? Do we have the people? Because all of a sudden, for a few weeks out of the year, are the people available to harvest the grapes? Are the tanks available? What is the sugar acid balance? So it has a huge impact. And then, of course, we also have to make sure if the growing season is too short, you're not going to have the acidity, you're not going to have the complexity that you would have. If you have ideally, this is why California is such a great place to grow grapes for wine, because you have fog. So fog acts as this kind of like almost artificial like barrier, like this little like comforter or pillow, because it gets cold at night. So you can have super hot days, but then you have really cool nights. So you can extend the growing season. So the longer you extend the growing season, the more physiological ripeness of the grapes you get, the more complexity and the more interesting things can be.
And also, I will say this too, in 2019, when you're talking climate change, I want Champagne, France went through 3 heat waves, which means the grapes burned on the vine. Yes. It wasn't a fight. They went through 3 heat waves where a lot of the grapes for Champagne burned. So it was June, July, and August. In August, they're really concerned because they're supposed to start harvest in September. And the Champagne harvest is not like other places. In the Finger Lakes, part of California, harvest can be anywhere between 8 to 2 weeks. In Champagne, it's 2 weeks. It is set by a guideline with a law that you have to start one day and you have to finish by another day. So it's so many laws in France, according to the AOC, in order to pick Champagne. So when we think of these wines and we think of these winemakers, they're working, it's every day. They're not, you know, it seems very glamorous. That's why I'm with Michelle. Like, you couldn't pay me to make wine. You could pay me to talk about it, write about it, and drink it, but you couldn't pay me to make it. Like, and also I've worked a harvest. And for me, this year, I don't even know what year it is, I was supposed to work harvest in Champagne. And I'm praying that happens next year, that I actually get to go Champagne and work. But I've worked a harvest. It is really hard on the body. It's physical. It's all day, 4 a.m. In different places, because Champagne has a time to start and has a time to end. But the difference of it is they understand that they have a lunch that involves wine and a dinner that involves wine. So that more appeals to me more than other regions where it's like
crazy. Yeah.
I know, right? It's like the French. I love you. Like, oh, we sit down for 2-hour lunches. Oh, I can go back and pick some more grapes because I've had great champagne for lunch.
Oh,
so
I can. Oh.
Yes. So that is one thing to really think about. Climate change is real. You know, one of the things that is happening, which affects, this not champagne, is the US currently has a 25% tariffs on European wine, also scotches. And I'm praying in the first 30 days that my goal is to be on Capitol Hill on January 21st, because I am going to be fighting that to stop the tariffs with my wine family. We're actually closing the wine store I work at. If you're in DC, Wardman Wines, we actually carry Laurent Perrier, La Cuvée, and the rosé. So if you want to come order it through me, you can. But we're going as a store to actually ask the lobbying to take away the tariffs on the day after the inauguration, because we decided that as a company, wine is important to us. It's our livelihood, it's our job, and we love it. And we're going to fight to that happens in the first 30 days with executive orders, because it can end a lot of, you know, problems with importers and distribution. Because a lot of times people ask, I want a wine, I can't get it in my city, my state, what happens? We're trying to fight on that behalf, because it caused a lot of European wines to go up 25%, which means a retailer actually went up 30% on your wines. So we're trying to stop that. So we're going to be fighting on January 22nd. Like, we're just excited about that. It's one of those things we're doing together. So
the US, at least for champagne, right? I'm going to keep it just kind of, I'll stay in my lane, which is champagne. The stuff that's happening with the tariffs is the worst thing to happen to the champagne business in at least the last 30 years. And it's, you know, and it obviously got overshadowed for a good reason with like, oh, pandemic. Like there's other stuff happening too. But the even just the tariff threat to champagne, which has not been levied on us, but which has been a looming threat rather for over 2 years, has been horrible for champagne. It's been horrible for us as an industry. It's been much worse for French still wines and some other European Union countries' still wines.
Spirits, also European spirits.
Absolutely, yeah. You're absolutely right. And a number of European spirits, and also American spirits, as the European countries enacted retaliatory tariffs against American spirits, including bourbon. So this is, we don't know how we got dragged into this fight, considering both the president and the United States trade representatives are self-proclaimed teetotalers, but yet here we are. So let's hope that that is not something that we need to deal with going forward. And yes, we do still need to fight it. The next giant part of this fight will come, will end, I should say, in the third week of February. But before that, there is a lot of fight that still needs to happen. So, and I mean, personally, look, I love champagne so dearly, and I'm very happy that I don't need to pay retail pricing for it, because it's not inexpensive. It costs us, I teach some classes, and I'm teaching one actually next week as well for Columbia University for their MBA program. And they always ask me about the finances of champagne and about the return on investment. And I'm telling them these numbers, and they're like, why do people do that? Like, that is a bad thing. Like, that is really poor profitability. It is. We think of champagne as this luxury product, and that's what we get emotionally. But in terms of profitability, it's really sad. It's really, really low. So we don't have a whole lot of extra money to throw around. And of course, what happens then with tariffs is that they just directly get passed on to consumers. And champagne's expensive enough because we have these regulations, as Julia was saying, the AOC, the organization that makes sure that the certain quality restrictions are adhered to. we make sure that we're making something that is of high quality, but that also means that it's going to be something that's expensive. So nobody wants 25% of that just going into the government's pocket, because it costs us enough to make the wine and sell it to consumers without just, a little tax going to the government on that.
Yeah, and so that's one of the things. Like, no, it's great. No, because I think like people here are interested in champagne and they really want to know, because it's one of those things we really want to support. So it's not really like, it goes back to why, when people ask about the cost of wine, I always make the joke, location, right? And then that wine has to come on a tanker over here in the US, and then that tanker has to go through an importer, then it has to go through a distributor, and then the distributor has to sell it to people like me, which means I got to taste your champagne. Like it's one of these moving parts, right? But I think when consumers, in my opinion, when we're more transparent and honest with that, they want to support us, because it's not this veil cloud, oh, champagne is so fancy. Like, and honestly, like, I drink out of glasses. If I'm outside and it's July in DC is built on a swamp. I am telling you, I am not above my champagne in a red Solo cup when it's hot. I know that's not Class A. I know it is not the thing. But if I am outside, I am not going to bring a very expensive wine glass outside. That's why I keep breaking them, because I was bringing them outside, and then I was like, I'm not going to do that because I know how much these glasses cost. And so it was one of those, like, how do I do that? I think like what Blaine is doing with Champagne Week, and we have these things like Friday night, guys, we're doing Rita Jamais from La Caravelle, and we're doing La Caravelle and fried chicken. Like, I'm telling y'all, like, I am so ready for that. And it's one of those things, like, and that's like true, because like, let's be honest, like, I'm looking at these beautiful Black women on this chat. But for Black people, we have never thought about being photographed in public with fried chicken because it's such a bad connotation. So I'm going to like talk about that. With like, we're not photographed for fried chicken, or we're not photographed with watermelon. Bottom line, you're not gonna find, like, when you do it, like I'm being honest, right? But guess what? On Friday, I'm gonna have that beautiful Marco Samuelson chicken that's chipped from Gold Belly and One. I'm gonna have that glass, and I'm gonna have a timer on that iPhone, because I am going to end the stereotype of Black people being photographed for fried chicken and champagne, because I'm just letting y'all know, when you see it on the Instagram, you need to like, retweet it, and do whatever you want, because I'm just ending that. I'm ending all that. I'm ending your stereotypes of what we do, because culturally, fried chicken is Black slave food. And if we're going to pair it with champagne, then why am I, who is the leader of an organization, not going to take a photo with some fried chicken and champagne to let y'all know this is how we roll, and not just on Friday, and not just for Champagne Week. We love this. This is what we do. And then on Saturday, I'm going to have my same champagne with caviar for Bill Salmon on a Lay's potato chip. And Shakira got me with this caviar, and this creme fraiche and the Lipton soup mixed together. And I got all that. So I'm just letting everybody know.
Listen.
Yeah, so
we go Lipton onion soup dip. Lipton onion soup dip mix in your creme fraiche.
Yes.
You take a good kettle potato chip. You put a little dollop of that on there, and then you put your caviar on top with good champagne. You will never eat plain creme fraiche again. I'm just telling you. But it's got to be good potato chips.
It's a bold statement.
I'm telling you.
No. Like, Michelle, she talked me through it one day, and I was like, sis, wait a minute. It was like, wait a minute.
Life-changing.
So I would like to point out the other female-led events that are happening the rest of this week.
Do we need to wind it up? Because I know it's 9:07.
Yeah, we do have to. We do have to wind it up. Do you mind if I go into it, or we don't have time?
No, we got to go down. Just let Michelle and I like wind up for like 2 minutes, and then you can go.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Okay, so I want to thank you all guys for coming. If you have any questions, one thing I want to say: if you did not finish your bottle, a tip. No, here's the thing. Here's a tip. Take a teaspoon or a small fork that's stainless steel, that's thin, put it in the top, stick it in the refrigerator, and the bubbles will stay if you do not have a champagne topper. I know that you might be like, I am finishing this bottle, Julia, but just in case you did not, I will say, put that in the fridge, put a little stopper on it. You can have it again tomorrow. I want to thank, first of all, Blaine, Champagne Laurent Perrier for everything they're doing for me to change also the way Black wine professionals are represented in this space and also in Champagne, because people in Champagne know what we're doing, because I have these conversations and they're like, we see what's happening with Black wine professionals in Champagne, and also to make this beverage we all love accessible for all of us. So I want to thank Blaine for doing that, and Michelle and everybody who joined us tonight. If you have any questions, you guys know how to find me. So Michelle, you have anything you want to say?
I'm good. I think you guys covered all of it. I'm just, and I had to go like Instacart some Lipton, onion soup mix. So no, I'm good now. Thank you. Thank you, Blaine. Thank you, Julia. And Julia,
Thank you, ladies.
I'm making light of it, but thank you for everything that you have done. It has been quite a year. And Jessica knows, like, we are honored to be involved with you. And like I've said, I was kind of disappointed that we were the first ones, because I thought everyone had rushed to you within Black wine professionals to make things happen. And I was afraid of jumping on the bandwagon. And I'm a little disappointed that we were the first. I thought that we were
guess what?
late to the party.
But this is the thing, you were meant to be the
start.
I wasn't disappointed. You know what it was? You were meant to be the first, because guess what? You guys helped us come out with a bang. So that's how we're going to look at that.
I like that. I love that. I love it. Cheers to you, Julia, for everything that you've done. And cheers to Blaine and everything you have done for FIZZ Female and for New York Champagne Week. And cheers to all of you here with us tonight. Yay.
Yeah, and I also want to point out that Laurent Perrier, in addition to Rita from La Caravel, were two of the early supporters of the FIZZ Female. So again, I really appreciate that. And thank you so much for the support to shine a spotlight on women in sparkling wine. So thank you both. You guys you have such jam-packed schedules. I really appreciate you taking time to host this event. And just quickly, I wanted to say that we have a couple of more female-led events through the week. Even though the tickets that include the champagnes are not available anymore, I'm happy to help guide you to find the champagnes locally wherever you are if you want to book those events. So for every single event that's happening for the rest of the week, you can get virtual access tickets for $25. And I'm happy to just DM me at New York Champagne Week, NY Champagne Week, or at Champagne Blaine, and I will help you find the champagnes in your local market if you want to grab those for that event. We have Rita Jamay on here, who's the founder of La Caravel, and she's hosting the Fried Chicken and Champagne Bash on Friday night. And through a partnership with Goldbelly, we're able to deliver fried chicken to 50 states. So that's pretty amazing. In addition to that, we have Vino Vinyasa on Saturday that's being led by Morgan Perry, and that's a yoga and champagne class combined. So I'm all about the balance. If you know me at all, you know that. Like, it's like detox to retox. I'm all about that life. And then on Saturday night, we are having at the Billy Carr Masquerade Ball. That's being led by Philana Bouvier, who is the Vice President of Fine Wines for RNDC, Republic National Distributing. And she's also co-hosting that event with the travel editor for Wine Enthusiast, Lauren Mowry. And that's meant to be like a fun dress-up experience. I'm actually filming that out of the Nomad Hotel in New York, doing a little staycation that night. So super excited for that. So we're gonna all get dressed up. And we are also hosting a costume contest for that event and giving away a magnum of champagne. So there's still a lot more fun to be had for the week. And please feel free to DM me. If you know me at all, you know I answer every single DM I get. I probably sent everybody a message that's on here tonight. So I'm happy to help guide you in selecting the events that are best for you for the rest of the week. And thank you all so much for supporting this year's event. It's huge for the champagne category, and that was my goal. It was a brand building year. I wanted to make sure to keep champagne sales on the rise through this pandemic and keep bubbles in everyone's belly, because bubbles make everything better.
I will say DC has sold more champagne this weekend than they have in the past 2 years. I am happy to say that our store was one of those people in one of those stores that happened, and it was really really interesting because we had a couple of cases of the rosé, and we actually today only had 2 bottles left after the weekend. So very excited that we had that, and yes, it's amazing. Thank you, Blaine.
Thank you all. Thank you all so much for coming, and I hope to see you the rest of this week. Cheers.
Goodbye, everyone. Mwah.
Bye. Mwah.
Love you all.
It was so good drinking with you all. Ladies, Reem and Lauren, how